Hello, everybody, and welcome to Right Here, Right Now, live Buffalo football talk. I'm your host, Alex Brasky, alongside my co-host, Ajay Cybulski, here for the Batavia Daily News and Livingston County News. Each week, we'll discuss Buffalo's favorite football team, along with all of the comings and goings from Orchard Park. A lot of comings and goings today, Ajay. Tell the people what we'll have in store for them today.
Yeah, obviously a very deep OTA discussion as the first week of OTAs for the Bills underway this week. So looking forward to that and much more here today. So let's get to it.
Yeah, as AJ said, let's dive right in. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of today's episode, let's first begin with some housekeeping, beginning with the attendance at OTAs. AJ, I know that's something that you were concerned with going into this year's session of organized team activities. No Daquan Jones or Russell Douglas, but it doesn't seem to be of a concern as it was last year with Stefon Diggs, or at least a temporary concern with head coach Sean McDermott. Funny enough, Stefon Diggs did not attend the Houston Texans OTAs this year, but I guess that's a conversation for another day. So good attendance, things in good spirits. McDermott praising the effort early on at OTAs. They begin on Monday. The media gets to view the practice on Tuesday, and we were out there for about a couple of hours today, maybe an hour and a half, and got to take in a lot. So one good sign, at least, AJ, to kick things off, good attendance at Bills OTAs.
Yeah, the Daquan Jones thing, again, a veteran established in this league. I wouldn't read too much into that. And the Russell Douglas thing, he has 1 year left on his contract. I know there's been some discussions with maybe a potential extension for Douglas. Had a really good season last year with the Bills, obviously acquired at the trade deadline for a third-round pick. So he's really been a good acquisition for this Bills team and obviously a very important piece for what they're going to want to do this season. But again, I wouldn't be too concerned with the absent players at OTAs this week. And again, it's voluntary. So these players aren't required to show up. And you mentioned the Stefon Diggs thing. I think it's funny that, again, you go in the comment sections of all those Twitter posts and people are saying, this is how it all starts. You're in denial. Like, he doesn't want to be a Texan. You're in denial. So it's all funny that just, keeps on keeping on. And that's kind of how things roll with a lot of people.
Right. And with Jones and Douglas, it's also two positions where there's a lot of competition on the Bills roster at cornerback. Obviously, what you lose there in Dave Jackson. So a lot of competition for the depth roles. And also at defensive tackle, you have your top two locked in at Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones, but a lot to be figured out behind them. And one of the potential depth pieces, rookie Dwayne Carter, really shined today during OTAs. I know there's no pads on, but he did make a couple of plays, knocking down a pass at the line of scrimmage. So giving those other guys some extra reps never hurts at this time in the offseason.
Yeah, Dwayne Carter, a guy that is going to need to step up throughout the OTA process, the minicamp process, and then going into training camp, a guy that's really looking to establish a rookie role on this team behind Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver.
He acts like a veteran, AJ. I'll tell you what, talking to him and just seeing him out there and his presence, it really gives you a veteran feel with this young player. So you're not far off with that slip of the tongue.
Yeah, it's funny because he was a guy at Duke that was a captain for 4 years. So again, he's going to bring that leadership experience to this locker room, even though he is a rookie. Sorry about the slip up, but yeah, Dwayne Carter is going to be very important for this depth role here for this Bills team. And again, if an injury does happen to Daquan Jones, who again is in his 30s and is coming off a torn pec, or an Ed Oliver, who's, those guys get banged up all the time. So Dwayne Carter putting together these solid performances, building that confidence level throughout this process is always a good sign.
Yeah, now moving on to some injury discussion. Sean McDermott providing some updates for a few of the Bills' injured players. Matt Milano on schedule in his rehab, which is very, very good news. A broken leg last year, missed much of the season, set to return this year. And McDermott said that we'll likely see his activity ramp up toward training camp. Maybe we'll see him work off to the side leading into that. But I think that would be the time to target Milano watch, if you want to call it that, and when the Bills get one of the key cogs back on their defense. But that's pretty good news. The Bills could have one of the best linebacking cores in football this season.
Yeah, I'm excited again. And it's funny because I've seen so many tweets from multiple content creators discussing how excited they are for the tandem of Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano. So I think it's the smart approach. Take their time with it. I think the Bills don't need to rush Milano in any instance. He's been here for years. He's been a guy that's been dependable on this Bills linebacking core. And I think he's a guy that can come right in training camp and really just, you know, put himself right on the field and have success. So Milano Bernard, excited to see how that rolls. Moving forward, Milano, 29 years old, he'll be 30 in July. So I'm interested to see if he still plays at that all pro level that we've seen over the past couple of years, because again, age, the injury, that's always a concern. But again, if they can play to their potential, it's going to be very important they do with the inexperience behind them in the safety position and in the corner position to an extent. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, Matt Milano, Brandon Beane on track. Sean McDermott said that today. So Brandon Beane's mentioned that earlier in the offseason. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Milano brings come training camp.
And beyond Milano and Bernard, you mentioned it. I believe it was our last episode, how interested you are to see the depth linebacker competition at this year's OTAs mini camp and training camp. You have Nicholas Morrow, you have a Dorian Williams and a Balin Spector coming back, young players. You have Adefuan Ulafosio coming in as a rookie, maybe a special teamer at first, but who knows, maybe he pokes his head in there for some playing time if one of those guys goes down. So you saw it come down last year to AJ Klein at the end of the season, and that certainly didn't write a good story. So the Bills trying to work their depth behind those top two players. And although I didn't get a good look at it today at OTAs, over the next 2 weeks, I'll make sure to keep my eye on those depth linebackers for sure, because that's an important position battle to watch. Another injury update on the offensive line. Right tackle Spencer Brown revealed to have had shoulder surgery this offseason. He did participate in individual work today at One Bills Drive during OTAs, but he did not participate in team drills. It doesn't seem to be that big of a concern for Spencer Brown, coming off quite the season under Aaron Cromer and really coming into his own as a key cog of this offensive line. So Bill's hoping to get him back in a full-time role, but good to see him out there in his pads and participating during individual drills Tuesday.
Yeah, on Sunday during the Micah Hyde charity softball game, which again was a very great event, great weather. Spencer Brown was out there tossing some pitches, so I'm sure he was in good spirits there. I'm sure he was in good spirits today at One Bills Drive, and yeah, I'm not too concerned about the Brown injury. Something that probably just had to be taken care of. The banged up Bills mentioned today on Twitter. It happened during the Kansas City game during the season, so that's something that he could have played throughout the rest of the season, but something they obviously had to address post regular season. And again, not too big of a concern on the linebacker front, like you mentioned, Alex. Deion Jones, Nicholas Morrow, Balin Spector, Dorian Williams, Ulafashio, and then Joe Andreessen. Those are kind of the names working in that linebacker room. I wouldn't expect much from Andreessen, but cool story. Lancaster graduate. He was at the Hyde softball game. He got a bigger option because obviously a local kid makes the team out of rookie minicamp. So that's a very cool story. And yeah, that linebacker room will be cool. And Spencer Brown, again, I think he'll be set for the start of maybe mandatory minicamp, but if not, definitely training camp.
And maybe a minor concern here, although I don't think it's a concern in terms of the long-term nature of the injury. Mike Edwards, the Bills free agent signing at safety, could be out 3 to 4 weeks with a shoulder injury per Sean McDermott. But like I said, it doesn't seem to be a concern in terms of the long-term nature. But a guy that's new in this system and a team that's starting 2 new safeties, you'd like to get everybody kind of involved and on the same page in the early going. But like I said, when it comes to structurally or anything, that injury doesn't seem to be of a concern. Maybe just a minor concern not getting him going early enough. But that seems and the injury getting into the action on the field. A couple of stars out there today, and when the pads aren't on at practice, it's usually the offensive guys making a difference, and particularly the wide receivers, the quarterback, maybe the running back coming out of the backfield, catching a couple of passes. And today, I'm sure everyone has seen on social media, one of those stars And one of the polarizing figures in this free agent process, Chase Claypool, came down with a huge catch, went up and really mossed Jamarcus Ingram on the sideline and just displayed everything the Bills could hope for out of a player with his skill set. Just read the ball in the air, camped under it, leapt up, made the play with good hands, and secured the catch through the fall. So it was a really good moment for Claypool. Maybe not Ingram's finest moment, but hey, I don't know what you're going to do with a guy who's 6'4 plus, that big, that strong, playing kind of like a box out role along the sideline. I'm not sure what you can do if you're Ingram, but a great moment for Claypool. And he said it after practice. It's just one play. It's OTAs. It's about stacking those moments. And he's still got a long way to go, but a good start for him. And Sean McDermott spoke glowingly about Chase Claypool during his pre-practice comments, talking about how he's felt that Claypool has come to Buffalo to kind of reclaim his career, a player that was once very highly sought after, kind of went on the scrap heap, and now the Bills picking him off and trying to reclaim his once great ability with Josh Allen. And a really good start for Claypool. And then it's really nice not only to have the lip service from the teammates and the coaches, but to put the tape or put something on the tape like he did today. That's certainly a step in the right direction.
Yeah, Claypool, mark my words, he will be the most polarizing, talked about player throughout the entire process from now until the end of August, whether he makes the team or not. A guy that in Pittsburgh, rookie season, only 25 years old, will turn 26 in early July, 6'4", 240, like you mentioned, big body, can really box out defenders on the perimeter, on the boundary. That's what he does best. He did it today at OTAs. Good thing that he's doing that and you're able to report that and see that, because that's a thing that they brought him in to do. That's what you want to hear from a guy like Chase Claypool. You want that to be reported. You don't want a drop or character issues or all that stuff that he's been kind of associated with in the past. And the one thing that really stood out to me today from McDermott's press conference regarding Claypool was he kind of brought up special teams without really being asked about it when talking about Claypool. He mentioned that Claypool would be willing to take on a special teams role. And I just think that's really important for a guy who's going to be fighting for, in my opinion, Alex, and I don't know if we want to just jump right to it and be on the fly here, but I think there's 5 locks on this wide receiver roster right now. It would be MVS, Matt Collins, Shakir, Samuel, and Coleman. I think they're locks. So if they keep 6, all these guys, Hamler, all these guys we're going to talk about for the next few months are fighting for 1 spot. If they keep 7, they'll keep 2. And they're fighting for 2 spots. But I think Claypool, if he can, again, 873 yards and 9 touchdowns his rookie year, 860 yards and 2 touchdowns in his sophomore season. And then throughout 2022, just kind of regressed. He was on the TikTok. He was doing all those videos. And then he started to get some hate from that and some attitude issues after games.
Might have been a little Juju Smith Schuster influence there.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, that probably was one of the big things, but
that never helped anybody.
No. So, and he's another guy that's kind of, he went to New England. He's had his moments, Juju Smith-Schuster, but his separation and his ability to get open underneath has kind of just lessened throughout his career. But yeah, Claypool, I think, again, just a very polarizing player. I'm glad to hear of the catch he made today. That's what he's going to need to do consistently throughout the rest of the way here. And again, a guy that wants to rejuvenate his career, just like Sean McDermott said. So Claypool, give him a chance, Bills Mafia. I know there's a lot of hate and there's a lot of making fun of the guy because of his success early, and now he's kind of just falling off the ladder. But I think if there's any place where he can kind of rejuvenate that career, it's with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, he mentioned stacking those moments, and if he continues to do that, it's going to be tough to keep him off the roster. I mean, who's coming for him? And Andy Isabella, Tyrell Shavers, these guys don't have proven track record. I know a lot of guys and gals want to say Justin Shorter, nipping at the heels. Maybe like you said, a KJ Hamler, somebody who I picked as a dark horse candidate to come and steal a roster spot. But once you see Claypool out there and his above the rim ability, as Brandon Beane would say, it's really enticing, and it really probably makes the team salivate for what he could potentially bring to the table. But let me ask you this question before we move on. I talk about Hamler and maybe his special teams ability, perhaps in the return game, perhaps beyond that offensively. is this the year that the Bills keep an extra receiver? We've seen them consistent at that number 6 numbers. Is this a year that they keep 7 receivers? And like you said, with Mac Hollins, supreme special teams ability, and Claypool's potential willingness to contribute in that regard. And then you talk about Hamler and all of the changeover on special teams for the Bills. Is this the year maybe an extra wide receiver gets thrown in there, and you see 3 guys, maybe even 4 guys really show up on special teams?
Yeah, I'm really intrigued, and I think there is a good possibility that the Bills do keep 7. I think, don't quote me on this, but I want to say in the first couple of years Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott took over, they did keep 7 once. So there was one time where they've done it, but it hasn't
So
happened.
the precedent has been set.
Yes. So it hasn't happened in a little while. I think, again, that goes with the confidence. You had Diggs and Davis at the top for a few years. You had Beasley worked in there, and Emmanuel Sanders came in and played a big role. So I think they were more confident. When you go into a year with all these new faces and all these new weapons for a quarterback that you hope you can take to a Super Bowl right now in the prime of his career. Happy birthday, Josh Allen, 28 today. But it's like, I don't know. I'm intrigued by this wide receiver room. I think they could keep 7. I think it's a real possibility, especially if I think all those 5 guys are locks with Hollins, who I think is, despite the fact I liked your tweet today, you mentioned that you think he is a lock at this point, and I agree with you.
I just wanted to reiterate that. I'm not sure that was that hot of a take, and I included that in the tweet, and I know it's very, very early in OTAs. I don't know if it's that hot of a take to say Mac Hollins is going to officially make the team, just lock it up, move on. But you see him out there on the field, and you see just his personality and the way he interacts with his teammates, and the way that Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane have also spoken about him. But really getting to see it up close today, he's I don't know how to say this. He's an alpha. He's an alpha in a room that is kind of in need of that as a wide receiver room in transition. And I don't think he's an alpha in the way maybe that Stephon Diggs was. And I'm not saying Stephon Diggs type leadership didn't serve the wide receiver room well. We saw the offense really take off with him on this team, and we saw some other wide receivers really come along. I don't know how much he had to do with it, but you always heard his teammates really preaching his leadership ability and what playing alongside him did for them. But Mac Hollins, I think, in a different way, can bring that leadership and really just guide this young wide receiver team along, and really echo everything that Josh Allen is preaching to them, and really reiterate that to them and cement that into their brain, while also instilling in them that work ethic and that willingness to contribute in other ways on special teams, like some of these wide receivers might have to do. But yeah, I didn't think it was that hot of a take, but I wanted to include that. And I just wanted to get people kind of thinking along those lines, because I think a lot of people look at it as Mac Hollins signed early in the free agent process. You kind of forgot about him once they signed soon forgotten Quintez Cephas, Claypool, Marquez Valdez Scantling, who we spoke with today at practice. An interesting guy, a fun guy to talk to. So it'll be interesting to see how the wide receiver room shakes out. But I think you're right along the lines with those 5 guys being locks, and then maybe you look at a 6th and potentially a 7th to come in here and work in alongside those top 5. But within that top 5, you do have Keon Coleman, the rookie. And I thought he stood out at practice today. Obviously, the first play of team drills, he catches a pass from Josh Allen. And then later in the practice, he makes a big catch along the sideline. He went up and really took it out of the air. I thought it was a high throw, and he really exhibited his wide catch radius and his ability to really maybe not make it. It wasn't quite a contested catch, but it was a catch in traffic that he had to go up and climb the ladder for. So that was certainly impressive to see his skill set come to fruition in the first OTA practice, and the first time that the media got to see Josh Allen throw him some passes.
Yeah, if you're not going to be able to separate, at the level that he has throughout his career, you're going to have to win in traffic. And to hear that again, it's the same thing with Claypool. That's a good sign. And I liked what Sean McDermott said today. Maybe not McDermott, Josh Allen, about he's all fun and games, but he also has that other side to him where he's pretty serious. So I think that Hollins, we're talking about all these people. Coleman, is a guy that can bring that energy and fun, but also lock in and be that football player he is. So that's just something I've noticed throughout the time he's been in Buffalo for just over a month or around a month now. So I think Coleman, again, he can really win at any level. And if you're not going to be able to separate great, which Josh Allen said he ran some pretty good routes today, I think winning in traffic, like you said, is a big thing.
Yeah, and another more familiar target for the Bills, Dalton Kincaid, second-year tight end, at a historic season in his rookie year, setting Bills franchise records and really putting himself up there in terms of rookie tight ends historically. He had a good day at practice, came away with, by my count, I think 3 or 4 receptions, and one of them was a highlight reel catch, even better than Coleman's along the sideline. Was put up really where only he could get it, and he went up and got it. Kincaid's going to be key to this offense, and a lot of people are talking about him being the team's number 1 wide receiver. And I think that's a worthy discussion to have, although he's not a wide receiver, just being that number 1 target for Josh Allen. And in this passing game that's in transition, and you lose Stephon Diggs, and you need someone to step into that role that's going to be that steady target for Allen. Kincaid has proven that game after game he can be there. Now I think he needs to step into maybe an increased role, a more attack down the field type of role, but we'll see what this season has to offer from Kincaid. But obviously, so far so good. Good start for the second-year tight end.
Yeah, it would surprise me if he did not lead the team in catches and yards this year. I think he's just so good at winning anywhere on the field. His awareness, his ability to get upfield after catching the ball, his separation ability, his nuance to his route running. He just has all that. And like we say, we call him a tight end, but he's more of a receiver in my book and probably most people's books. And like, Brandon Beane in Carolina, he had Greg Olsen. Like, this guy he had Cam Newton and Greg Olsen. That was kind of their duo there in Carolina. So I want to see them trying to go back to that now with Josh Allen and seeing what they can get out of Kincaid and Allen in Buffalo. And I think that's a really intriguing thing. And if you look at that Carolina team, a lot of things, are kind of translating over to what they're trying to do in Buffalo. The bigger bodied receivers, the Bills are transitioning away from the speedsters that can separate, like the John Browns, the Cole Beasleys, and you're getting these big bodied guys that Josh Allen can trust. And Josh Allen said today, I would rather have a guy throw a 50-50 ball, but it be considered a 90-10 ball, because of the fact that our guys can just go up and get it and win every single time. And if Josh Allen has that, how are you going to be able to stop him? He can do it on his legs. If he has guys that he can trust in the air on jump balls consistently, and again, like Kincaid can do it too. He's not just a separator. He can also win those 50-50 catches. So I think all these guys on this roster have the ability to win in the air, vertically, and also some of them especially can separate, laterally as well.
Yeah, a few other standouts from today's practice. Cole Bishop, I didn't get a lot of time watching him, but we spoke with Taron Johnson after practice, and he was really impressed by Cole Bishop. Just his size and his speed, the combination of the two. Quote, "This kid is big. The way he moves like he's my size." That's Cole Bishop, who ran a great 40 time at the NFL Combine. And with Mike Edwards out, maybe getting some extra reps as well as in his quest to crack the starting lineup this season. I obviously think he has an outside chance of doing that to kick off the year, but I think that's kind of what the Bills are hoping for from Bishop as the season progresses. But something else we heard from Taron Johnson that I know sparked your interest, Bobby Babich receiving very high praise from Johnson. Johnson saying that Babich is the coach, has the highest football IQ of any coach that he's played for. And that's very high praise for the new Bills defensive coordinator. And we spoke with McDermott before practice, and he said that he still hasn't made the decision who's going to call plays on the defensive side of the ball for the Bills this year. That's kind of a better question to ask him come training camp, something to be sorted out at that time. But Babich receiving high praise already from his players, one of them being Taron Johnson, the all-pro nickel cornerback.
Yeah, it's one thing, and all respect to every player in the NFL, but Taron Johnson, an all-pro, to say that, a guy who's been on the Bills, he's played under Leslie Frazier, he's played with Sean McDermott for years, he's played with a multitude of very talented, John Butler, very talented coaches throughout his NFL career, and for him to say, on week one of voluntary OTAs that Bobby Babbage is the smartest, highest football IQ he's ever played with. A guy, and it all makes sense, Alex. Like, he's a guy that's developed Jordan Poyer. He developed Micah Hyde. He's like, it's a DB factory in Buffalo. Teron Johnson's a 5th-round pick out of Weber State. So you look at all these guys they've compiled and how he's developed all these guys, and he's been a key cog in that. I just think it means a lot for a guy, a leader, an all-pro player, to stand at the podium on the first day that the media is allowed to talk and say something like that. And that was a great get by you, a great, obviously good content there, because I did enjoy that thoroughly, because I just think it means a lot coming from a guy like Teron Johnson, who's played at the highest level on a team on the Bills that have had success. And I think Babbage, it'll be interesting to see what he does, but I think we'll see some fine tuning to this defense. I think there'll be some more aggressiveness, some more cover zero, some more man. I'm really excited to see what this Bobby Babbage and Sean McDermott driven offense does this year, because it's going to be fun one.
Another takeaway from practice afterward, Josh Allen spent some time working with his wide receivers. This is, as we said before, this is a group in transition, and this is something that's going to take a lot of effort from everybody involved to get right early in the year. Curtis Samuel, potentially as the number one wide receiver per se. You have Khalil Shakir. Them looking for a build-on year from him after his breakout season a year ago. You have Kincaid, who's going to factor in heavily to this passing game. But Sean McDermott spoke about it before practice, and just how Josh Allen has become very, very hands-on in his leadership this year. And that's going to be a shift for the Bills. You had Stephon Diggs. I mentioned it before, the alpha in that wide receiver room, really the alpha in that offensive huddle. And you have Josh Allen now this year. This is his team officially. As the franchise quarterback, it should always be your team, and truly it was before. But officially now he has taken over as the alpha male in that locker room. And his leadership is going to mean a lot for this team. And it's good to see him doing these extra things and being intentional about his leadership and trying to get on the same page as his wide receivers and running backs and tight ends as soon as he can.
Alex, though, he doesn't work in the offseason, Alex. He doesn't work. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, there's a lot of conversation about that. It's gone on all offseason. Even going back to last year, I think Allen puts in the work. Obviously, he loves to golf. He needs another part of his life. A football season's long enough. You put your body through a lot, the way he plays especially. So I'm excited to see that he's putting in the work after practice, getting to know these guys. My dad in the comments, how do you feel about Cephas? Dad, he is not on the team any longer. So Quintus Cephas has been released. They did not. Obviously did not work.
Breaking news.
Yeah, breaking news. So Cephas is no longer on the team. They signed safety D. Delaney, who's had experience with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and other teams. So he's another guy. If you think, excuse me, Bishop, Edwards, Rapp, all those guys are locks. Cam Lewis may be a lock as well. D. Delaney's a guy that could potentially sneak in as the 5th safety here come training camp with the experience he's had. But yeah, I'm excited for Josh to get to work with his guys in this transitional period, like you said. He is now officially the guy that the team's going to rely on. And I'm going to throw a quick question at you, Alex, off the hinge here. How was the vibes today at OTAs? How are the players? How was the energy from, the first guy on the roster to the 91st guy on the roster?
It's tough to gauge the entire scope of the vibe around the team from 1 hour and a half practice. But I'll tell you what, some of these new guys are already getting very comfortable with their surroundings. Marquez Valdez-Scantling came off the field, and as Josh Allen is speaking with the media, he's yelling, "Happy birthday, Josh," already comfortable enough to interrupt his quarterback at the podium there as he waited for his own press availability, which came afterward. But yeah, I think it's where it needs to be at this point. You have a team in transition, a lot of new teammates trying to get to know one another, and a lot of leadership roles trying to fill out as well, as we spoke about with this rookie class. A lot of leadership, and Brandon Beane has termed the theme of this year's class as leaders and dogs. But the leadership is going to come from the veterans, and with so many shifting out, with Jordan Poyer and Tre'Davious White and Mitch Morse and Stephon Diggs, and the list goes on and on. We'll talk about another who may be potentially making his way to the end of the road. But yeah, the leadership is going to be something else that we're going to have to look at, and who takes the reins in that regard. It's going to start with Josh Allen, but it's going to have to come from others And I think you'll see some familiar faces, but I also think you'll see some of these newer guys. We mentioned Matt Collins, and you saw Marquez Valdez-Scantling, what he brings to the table in terms of playoff experience, Super Bowl experience. That's also valuable to have. So that's going to be something to watch in how that develops. But also, Micah Hyde was spoken about today at Sean McDermott's press conference. I asked him if throughout his conversations and knowing Hyde for 8 years, if there was any inkling that he got one way or another, if Hyde wanted to return and play football for the Bills. And he said, well, he already said he wanted to, if he was going to return, it was going to be for the Bills, but it's just a matter now of Hyde figuring out the timing and kind of the health situation that he finds himself in with that ailing neck that caused so many problems the past couple of years. But McDermott, Bean, and Hyde seem to be in a good place in terms of those conversations and where Hyde sits and in his mental recovery, I should say, and just the mental standpoint he finds himself in at this point of the offseason. And I had it brought up to me, I believe, on Twitter. I can't remember the individual who did, but he said maybe a mid-season, late-season addition, just some insurance for the playoffs, and maybe we see that from Hyde. I would think that a player of his caliber and a player of his hunger really would want to get involved a little bit sooner if he is going to dip his toe in that pool. But who knows? I wouldn't leave anything out. And we saw, as we spoke about earlier, with Ajay Klein being had to be pulled off the scrap heap last season. If you have to bring in Micah Hyde late in the season because you don't like where you are at safety, it's not a bad option to have.
Yeah, Micah's going to be – I mean, he's – at the charity softball game, probably no one noticed this, but Matt Collins was at the home run derby, and he had, 4 outs in a row. And Micah, called him over and, relax, man, relax. And he had 2 straight, so that was pretty cool just to see, the leadership kind of in full effect there. You get kind of cool him down, and then he smacked 2 home runs over the fence. But, yeah, Micah is a very important player, and it's an interesting conversation. I don't know where he stands mentally. Physically, I know that neck injury was probably a little bit worse than most people thought, and he might not have should have even played last season with that egg neck. But he had to go out with Poyer, and that was kind of that duo. They were going out together one more year. That was kind of the motto from them. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Either way, I don't think it's a huge loss because of the talent they've added at safety this offseason. The Bishop pick in the second round, they signed Mike Edwards. They signed Taylor Rapp to a 3-year deal. So they're bringing in a lot of guys. D. Delaney added to the mix. So you're bringing in a lot of guys that have experience or you believe can develop into key players as soon as this season. So I just don't know where Micah Hyde fits into that. But like you said, if there are injuries throughout the year or something happens to a Mike Edwards or a Taylor Rapp or a Cole Bishop, maybe Micah Hyde does become that, hey, Micah, look, we're in a kind of a bundle here. Will you come join us? Let's see what you can do. Make one more run. And that's kind of where I'm at. But again, maybe he does say, you know what, let's do it. But again, I think it's the health right now. That's a big cause of all this holdup. I don't know if he's there physically. He said to Trainwreck Sports at the softball tournament, he still wakes up, his neck bothers him every single day. And at 33 years old, you have 2 kids and a wife. It's just a conversation that you truly don't know from our perspective. It's really just what he believes is best for him at this point.
How about Virgil chiming in from Manchester, England? Cheerio, my friend.
How you doing, Virgil?
Bill's not too far removed from their last trip to the UK. And also they brought in, obviously, Travis Clayton, the international pathway player. You saw him out there today, and you saw him working with the Bills' assistant offensive line coach. And it's interesting to see him just learning the game at this time. A lot of these rookies and these other new veterans into the mix and trying to work themselves in. But Clayton just trying to learn the game and simply survive as a player in new surroundings. So certainly interesting to see there. But now we move on to a more overarching discussion, one that we kind of missed the boat on this past week. Had some other stuff to attend to. The NFL schedule came out this past week, AJ. We won't spend too much time on it. A lot has been discussed about it already. But what are your impressions of the Bills schedule? Easy, hard? Do you like the structure of it? Kind of how things fell? What are your impressions of the Bills schedule there?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tough schedule, Alex, when you're winning the AFC East consistently. It's a really tough test from a week. I want to say, and I'm not going to say that the Cardinals are some pushover. They have Kyler Murray coming back. They have Marvin Harrison Jr. that they just drafted. So they have talent. James Conner is a very gritty running back that can not take over games, but he's a guy that's, done it in this league for a long time. But you look at that week 2 through 6 stretch, Dolphins on the road, Jaguars at home, who have, again, a juggernaut of a receiving core with Brian Thomas Jr., Gabe Davis, and Christian Kirk, paired with Travis Etienne. Baltimore Ravens, who added Derrick Henry on Sunday Night Football on the road. Then you got to travel to Houston to play your former alpha dog wide receiver, Stephon Diggs, on the road at 1 o'clock with C.J. Stroud already ascending into year 2 at that point, potentially. And then you go on the road against the Jets on Monday Night Football against Aaron Rodgers in a kind of a rematch of the 2023 game that obviously did not pan out well for the Bills or the Jets because the Jets lost their quarterback and the Bills lost to Zach Wilson. So it's really a lose-lose in that scenario last year. But I think that stretch from week 2 to week 6, Dolphins playoff team, Jags playoff team, Ravens AFC champion a team, Texans AFC South divisional winner, Jets I think are – I know I'm not going to go crazy about the Jets, but again, I think their defense with Rodgers is a scary thing if it can all come together. That stretch is going to be huge. And then you look at the Titans, it's a little bit of a break there, but then you got to go at Seattle, got the Dolphins back at home, Indy, and then obviously the rematch with the Chiefs, 425 at home this time again. So that should be a very fun game. Then you get the nice bye week, right, Alex? You get the nice bye week, week 12. Then you got the 49ers. So yeah, I think the schedule is very tough. You end with the Patriots, Jets, Patriots. So at that point, you probably hope to be 2-1 in the division, and you want to try and at least win 2 of those 3 games if you want a chance to win the division. But yeah, tough schedule with a lot of fun storylines, matchups, playing former teammates. It's going to be a fun 2024 season and a transitional season that I still think could bode well for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, from my perspective, I'm pretty satisfied that they avoided the holidays. They did not avoid a lot of prime time, but I think I pulled the screen down. I think it's 5 Sunday 1 p.m. home games.
It is 7 1 o'clock games.
But I think 5 of those fall at home, if I'm correct.
Okay.
And I know that
potentially, yeah, that's probably.
I know that last year a lot of the home games were not at 1 p.m. much to the dismay of Bills Mafia. So they'll get back into their wheelhouse this season. But before we get on out of here, is there anything I forgot? Is there anything that we didn't cover from today's OTAs? Any storylines that I'm missing? I think we covered just about everything.
Yeah. Thank you all for tuning in is really all I have to say. I appreciate all the views, all the shares. And again, we're going to continue to get this thing rolling every week, pumping out content here on Right Here, Right Now. And we really do appreciate everything. Virgil, pretty cool. Hanging in from Manchester. John Robert, as always, thank you for tuning in. My dad, thanks for the comment about Cephas, even though, you were wrong and weren't up to date, but that's okay. But yeah, I appreciate everything and everyone for coming in. And I'm really looking forward to what's next year on Right Here, Right Now. And the Bills are, the new look Bills. Alex got a good first look at them today. So it's an exciting time here in Buffalo.
All right, that's going to do it. Thanks again for tuning in. You can find us on X, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcast. Please take time to rate, share, like, and review the pod. And we will see you next time.
Peace out.